Hello all and welcome to today's webinar, which is all about the XPRIZE competition award-winning app Learning Upgrade. If you have any questions about the XPRIZE competition or the apps after this webinar, you can always send a message to xprize@proliteracy.org. All right, let's get some housekeeping out of the way and then we'll get started. Your phones are going to be muted during the presentation. If you have questions, please type them directly into the question box, which is slightly different than the chat box, but I'm sure both will be monitored. The questions are going to be monitored throughout the webinar, and they'll be answered time allowing throughout, but we'll make sure that there's time before the webinar is over to address everyone's questions. Also, everyone who registered for this webinar will receive a link to the recording in an email that will go out tomorrow, and it'll also be posted to our website.
Great, thanks. This is Michelle Dietrich, Director of Programs at ProLiteracy, and I'm just going to hand this over to Vinod Lobo and Drew Robinson. I'm very pleased to introduce Learning Upgrade. Many of you have heard about them, of course, because they're the XPRIZE App Award winner, first prize. So we're really pleased to be partnering with them and offering your programs a great tool that you can use with their learners. So with that, I'll turn it over to them to tell you all about Learning Upgrade.
All right, thank you. Thank you all for attending. My name is Drew Robinson, and I'm joined by founder and CEO of Learning Upgrade, Vinod Lobo. And so I'll be getting started here, and I'll be introducing the Learning Upgrade app. We'll be covering, how this smartphone app can transform your literacy program. And then we'll start talking about how you can bring Learning Upgrade into your classroom, library, literacy center, and what that'll look like. So before we get started, we're going to be covering, taking a look at our courses, how they apply to different literacy programs, how to enroll learners. And so, we're going to be sharing a few documents and showing some things. And just so you're not wondering, I know we usually get a lot of questions about this in the question box, but you can find everything we're going to be sharing today on the New Readers Press website. So you can go to newreaderspress.com, and in that main menu, you'll see Digital Solutions. If you click on Digital Solutions, you'll see Learning Upgrade there. And so when you click on Learning Upgrade under Digital Solutions, you can see our courses, you can see our placement tables, and then you'll also see a link for pilots. And so we'll be covering this at the end as well. But to bring Learning Upgrade to your program, you can just request a pilot and we'll be able to get you started. So again, I'll cover this at the end, but for those of you that, if you have questions on, where you can find some of the things that we're showing in our presentation, you can go to Digital Solutions on the New Readers Press website. Okay, so to get started, I just want to share a little bit about the Learning Upgrade story. So Learning Upgrade is a family-owned company. We're based out of San Diego, California, and we've been around for a long time. We're used by all 50 states, and we've had over 2 million students go through the Learning Upgrade courses. So, we're have a large presence here in the United States. With the XPRIZE, and even before then, we've had a large presence internationally as well that's been growing. But we've been growing really quickly in adult education. We've added hundreds of adult education providers this year alone, and it continues to be the area that we're growing the fastest. The big one, is that we're proven and validated. So we'll be able to share some of that a little bit later. But a big part of that is, from the Adult Literacy XPRIZE. So you've probably received a few emails about the Adult Literacy XPRIZE Communities competition. But for those of you that aren't familiar with it, I just want to cover it briefly. So a few years ago, the XPRIZE Foundation, along with the Barbara Bush Foundation and Dollar General, came out with the Adult Literacy XPRIZE. And the competition was to see if a company could develop an app that would have measurable gains for adult learners that were low literate. And so we entered the competition a few years ago. We made the cut for the semifinalists, the finalists, and then we found out in February that we were the co-grand prize winner. And that was important because we had done field tests and studies, at community colleges, adult education centers, literacy programs. But with the XPRIZE, we were able to take part in one of the largest adult education field tests ever. And so we had a 16-month field test. We had 12,000 adult learners, and those adult learners were considered low literate, so a CASAS 210 or below, and they actually used the CASAS test for their pre and post. And so by winning, we were able to show that the most important part was that we produced gains that were greater than what the learners would have experienced during a year of classroom study. So when they took at the learners that were on Learning Upgrade at these literacy programs, these providers, and then looked at the students in those same centers that weren't using Learning Upgrade, the gains in that year, from using our app gave them an advantage. And then also, the benchmark for the communities competition is they wanted to see in 1 year, who could move learners up one level. And so some of you have taken part in the communities competition. You got a selection of 4 apps. I know a lot of you are using Learning Upgrade. That competition ends on August 31st. And so it's not too late to participate. It's not too late to get on board with that. Again, if you request a pilot under Digital Solutions for Learning Upgrade, you'll be able to sign on for that. And the communities competition code for pro literacy is 1155. So if you request a pilot, we can send you more information on that. But the pro literacy communities competition code is 1155. So, we're talking about our smartphone app today. It was the core focus of the XPRIZE, the Adult Literacy XPRIZE. And so most of you, this is going to be obvious, but I just want to cover why smartphones, for those of you that might not see the obvious, fit for your program. First, this number is growing. I think study was done at the time that the XPRIZE launched, but 80% of low-income adults have smartphones. That number is closer to 90 now. And the big one is 1/3 of those are mobile only. And so that means the smartphone is their only connection to the internet. This is how they pay their bills. This is how they communicate with family, everything they do in life. And, me personally, I'm sure a lot of you that are attending today, more and more of our life is centered around our smartphone. Before we would do a lot of things. We had, our landline connection on our phone. We'd go to the bank to pay bills. We'd write a lot of checks. There was a number of, different tools that we would use for communication and other things in our life. And now we find ourselves today where the vast majority of the things we do can be done with our smartphone. And, it makes for a perfect opportunity because now we have the Learning Upgrade app, and we can provide math and literacy skills to our adult learners. And so, before, I'm sure a lot of you that are in, you have a computer lab, maybe you have Chromebooks. When you're working with a program that can only be used through a browser or that requires a software download, you're working with developing computer skills. You have to teach a learner how to start up a computer. You have to teach a learner how to open a browser, type in a URL, go to the website, manipulate a mouse or a touchpad. But there's, that learning curve that doesn't exist on the smartphone. We find with all of our adult learners that they already have the phone skills necessary. If we tell them to download the Learning Upgrade app, there really isn't anything that needs to be done in between that request and them getting it downloaded. They know how to navigate to the App Store, type in Learning Upgrade, download it, and then launch the app. Their phones are always working. With phones becoming, such an important part of our life, if I need to text, my kids that, hey, I'm going to be a little late after soccer practice, or, I'm paying bills on my banking app, whatever it is, everyone's phones are always working. Other things in the house might be broken, but the phone always has to work. And then the most important one is that our phones are always with us. And so this is something that's becoming, noticeable everywhere you go. You see people looking down at their phones, and the phones are always in a pocket, backpack, purse, whatever it may be. But it creates a wonderful learning opportunity when every free moment now they have access to the Learning Upgrade app. And so if they're waiting on the bus, waiting for kids, to get done at the dentist, and the big one that we're really seeing here is that now, the Learning Upgrade app started and we really wanted to target the free moments in the lives of our adult learners. What we're seeing is that Learning Upgrade is slowly replacing other things as well. And so you'll hear a term that we use quite frequently now, but we call it binge learning. And it's similar to binge watching, with Netflix or YouTube or wherever, you're consuming content online. But when we look at our data, we used to think it would be in the school hours or it would be in, just after work. But we're seeing a lot of binge learning taking place in the time that used to be spent on social media. So we might see something at 5:30 in the morning. We're seeing a ton of activity in that 9 p.m. to 12 p.m. window. So before going to bed, instead of wasting time scrolling through messages on Facebook or looking at pictures on Instagram, now our learners have Learning Upgrade, and they're able to complete multiple lessons and dramatically improve their math and literacy skills. So, what is Learning Upgrade? I gave you a little intro on our story, the XPRIZE, why smartphone access is important. But now let me tell you how our app, meets those needs. So, the Learning Upgrade app is 21 courses, and every single one of our courses has 60 lessons. Currently, we're almost ready to release our latest, which will be the 22nd course, which is digital literacy. Right now we have math and English, and I'll be covering those in a bit. All of our lessons, so we have 21 courses, 60 lessons per course, and every one of those lessons uses songs, videos, and games to teach. We have rewards, so they earn medals every time they finish a lesson. They get certificates every time they finish a course, and they can learn everywhere. This can be in class, on site for those of you in a blended classroom setting. It can be done at home for those of you looking for more of a distance program. And then the most important thing, and I'll show you our LMS a little bit later, is that you as an instructor, as a provider, get continuous assessment reports. So you can go in and you can see exactly how often your learners are logging in, which lessons they're completing, which devices they're completing them on, if it's done in class or out of class. And so I'll be able to show you a little bit of that later. So this is what the app looks like when you log in. A learner, I'll be showing you they can either self-enroll or you can enroll them as an instructor, and they're going to see the course map here. So you'll see our English courses, you'll see our math courses, and then you'll see our skill courses at the bottom. And so a learner, they'll click on one of those courses. And so let's say they're starting on English 1, then they're going to see the English 1 course map. So, we laid this out like a subway or tube map. And so it's really important that the learners have an opportunity to see the path. They get a chance to see where they're going. And that's important for this binge learning as well. When they're looking at the courses, we're not just showing them the course that they're on, we're showing them as far as they can go. And this is something that we hear a lot. We talk to our refugee centers a lot, but they always say, I might be here on, math 1 right now, but I'm getting to algebra. That's their goal. I'm gonna get into algebra and I want to be able to go and complete courses at a community college. I want to go and get a job at the airport. Whatever it is, they're able to continually see the path that they're on. And so this really helps with that binge learning. When they finish English 1, they know that there's English 2, and they'll be able to get started without the teacher having to get involved. They can work at their own pace and continue making progress. So you'll see here, on English 1, you'll see the 60 lessons, and then you'll also see that each one of these lessons has a medal. And so you'll see gold, silver, and bronze. And so when the learners complete a lesson, they're going to be given instruction in the form of a song. And then after that instruction, they're going to be answering questions. So, let's take lesson 2, for example. I'm starting out on letter sounds. I get the letter sounds instruction, and now there's the game component. So for every single one of the lessons, you have to earn 100 points, and the increment of the points will change depending on the difficulty of the questions. For something like letter sounds, you'll be usually 3 points for every correct answer. And then you need to get 75% or better in order to move on to the next lesson. And so if you get 75 to 89%, that's going to be a bronze. And so you'll see lessons 54, 58, and 59. If you get 90% to 94, you're going to get a silver. And then if you get 95 to 100, you're going to get gold. And so you can see the bronze, silver, and gold here on the course map. And then once you complete an entire course, so in this case, you finished all 60 lessons for English Upgrade 1, you're going to earn a certificate. So you'll see at the bottom left, this learner has earned a bronze certificate. When they earn the bronze certificate, a voice is going to come on and say, okay, let's go back and work on 54, 58, and 59 and work those up to a silver and earn a silver certificate. Once they earn that silver certificate, we're going to automatically enroll them in English 2, and they can start working on that, or they can repeat those silver lessons to mastery on English 1 and earn a gold. And so that's just a quick overview of how our courses work. And the learners, when they log into the app for the first time, we have a quick 90-second video that plays that'll walk them through all of this. So they'll get an idea of exactly, how all of this works, how they earn certificates, how they earn medals. And so a quick video will play there. So, around every single one of our lessons, everything is built around learner engagement. And so it's not enough to just throw, text at a learner, questions, multiple choice, and then show them boring ABC, this is what you did right or wrong. Every single one of our lessons, as I mentioned, starts out with songs. So they get the instruction in the form of a song, they see these animations, and then that's what you're seeing on the left. And then after the instruction, then they're going to answer the questions. And so you'll see how that looks on the right. So this is volume of a rectangular prism. And so, you're going to be, shown this, and then you say, okay, well, how many units? You have the length, width, height, and then you're going to drag and drop numbers in. But what's really important is for our learners, if they get something incorrect, we don't just tell them you're incorrect and move on. For every single one of our questions, a voice is going to come on, and it's going to tell you what you did incorrectly. And in these cases, we're actually going to show you, no, this is where this number comes from. And so this drag and drop really brings the content to life when you can see where the answers are coming from. And so, the learner engagement is really at the heart of that binge learning. It's what gets learners to not just log in for the first time, not just log in because my instructor told me so, but because they, number one, enjoy it, but number two, they instantly see the value. They see the improvement in their math and literacy skills, and that really helps to encourage activity. So as I mentioned, Learning Upgrade is available everywhere. And so, we talk about the Learning Upgrade app. It's available on iOS for Apple devices, so an iPhone or an iPad. It's available for Android devices on the Google Play Store. And then it's also available on the web. So you can go to learningupgrade.com, you can click login, and the learners can use their username and password to log in on the web. And so that's really important for a lot of our adults because, sometimes they'll be sharing a device at home, or maybe they're on a prepaid phone, something happened to a device, or they're at the computer lab at a library, and we need to have some device handoff there. And so once your learners have a username and password, they can log in on a Chromebook at your center, and they can complete lessons 1 through 4. But then when they log into the Learning Upgrade app at home, they get to pick up right where they left off on lesson 5. You as the instructor can see your reports, and you get to see all of that. You can see the in-class versus out of class. You'll be able to see the type of device they were logging in with, and then you can also see the times that their lessons were completed by viewing a session report. So now we're going to jump into the content, and I'm going to bring in Vinod to tell you about our lessons, and then we'll also be covering some Learning Upgrade placement.
Okay, thanks, Drew. Can you hear me okay, Drew?
Yes.
Okay, great. First, we'll answer a couple of questions. Kathy asked, is this similar to Duolingo? That's a great question. I want to kind of explain the difference between a language acquisition program like Duolingo and Learning Upgrade, which is teaching reading, writing, listening, comprehension, and math. So our program is designed both to teach language, but also to teach academics, reading, writing, and comprehension, and math. So here's the difference. In our program, for example, you're gonna have to read a biology textbook and pick out the main idea and be able to generalize, or to look at a play or a poem and analyze it. You're gonna learn grammar and spelling. So what we're looking at is to get learners, not just language acquisition, but all the way to earn a diploma, pass a GED, move on to college. So it's a little different aim, and sometimes the programs are used together. Things like Rosetta Stone and Duolingo are used along with Learning Upgrade. There was another question, do we get a completion certificate? I think I'll have to defer to the pro literacy staff there. I don't know if anyone wants to jump in on that. Okay, well, I think they will be able to answer that in the question window to Shannon. Thanks much for that. Okay, what you're looking at is our English upgrade lesson list. You can find this also on that NRP page. I put the link in the chat window. This shows you the 60 lessons in each of the 6 courses, starting with the basics and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And in each of these courses, you're going to get a combination. For example, in English 1, you will get letter sounds and blending, phonics. You'll get the XPRIZE list for the first level, but you'll also be writing sentences. You'll also be reading passages, picking out character and setting and main idea at the very basic level. And then we just keep going up. By the time you get to level 4, level 5, and by the way, these match the NRS levels, then you can basically be working on advanced comprehension. By the time you get to the 5th course, you might be comparing and contrasting 2 different passages on science or on history or social studies, and each one is 10 paragraphs long. So there's quite a progression. And the first course is used all the way at the beginning level. Okay, so if you look at the placement tables, some of you out there are using the CASAS tests, some are using the new TABE 11-12 tests. Basically, this table, which is also available on the New Readers Press Learning Upgrade page, will align CCRS levels, we have an alignment, or NRS, ESL, or ABE levels with the TABE and CASA scores and with our courses. Each one of our courses takes about 20 to 30 hours to complete. So someone who starts all the way at the basics, for example, a new arrival refugee, they might take a total of 120 hours to go all the way up to that sort of GED sort of level. So this table will do 2 things. One is if you already have a lot of data, this will help you place your student. You can actually place your student in a specific course like English 2, and then they would start there and move up. The second thing you can do is assign them to our placement test. And you just choose placement, and then the learner will actually take a quick test and then start on the correct course here. So that is how these work. We also have this for math. And I actually suggest, even with your English learners, that you start them off with both an English course and a math course. Because we found working with a variety of English learners that they really love being able to go back and forth with math. They find more success sometimes in math, and then they jump back into English. So doing the 2 together seems to really help. I want to answer one more question here. Is there a fee for the pilot? There is no fee for the pilot. So when you sign up for the pilot, you will get an email and it will actually give you a license and instructions, and you can start enrolling your students, and there's no fee for that.
All right, thank you, Vinod. And I will have you back very shortly to talk about one of our deployment models. But I just want to cover a few, so, one of the things that we find most inspiring is, when we start, working with a new provider is, they usually come to us with a need that's pretty specific. And they'll tell us, okay, I'm working I'm working with refugees, or I'm working in workforce. I'm at a library that has a really long wait list. I'm in a blended classroom and I'm looking for resources. But they'll come to us with a really specific need. And so we'll work with them and we'll, okay, well, this is, a great way to, introduce Learning Upgrade to your learners. And then one of the things that we're finding is it's always really important to cover, some of our other deployment models because light bulbs tend to go off. Sometimes maybe not for that specific teacher, but they always say, you know what, there's another instructor at my site who would really be able to take advantage of this. And so, the focus of today, is, how a smartphone app can transform your literacy program. And we're really focusing on the literacy today. It was the core focus of the Adult Literacy XPRIZE. And, obviously we've got a lot of recognition for the literacy part of our app, but we also have math as well. So as Vinod mentioned, even in our, we're only doing literacy at this program, a lot of the times they will still have their learners be enrolled in the math. And so for those of you, it's great to see a lot of diversity from the providers and where you're located. And so I just want to cover, some of our most popular models here. And so, maybe you'll see something where it's like, hey, I'm a blended class and I want to hear about the blended class, but also just give you some quick stories from our other providers and see if what they're doing could be put to use with your learners as well. So the first one, that was the XPRIZE, and that was, okay, we're going to have a field test and we want to get the Learning Upgrade app into the hands of 12,000 adult learners. So the key there is just to have quick deployments. If you're going to be doing 12,000 adult learners, that, you're not going to have any oversight. The thing that we found with Learning Upgrade is, the app is great, the app works, and we know that we can improve math and literacy scores with adult learners. But where we really see the success go to the next level is with adult literacy providers and instructors. It's the app can only do so much. When we have instructors, providers, admins, monitoring reports, motivating learners, using the app in tandem to what they're already doing in the classroom, the scores really jump. And so the XPRIZE didn't have, the best part of Adult Ed, which is the instructors, but it was still successful. Where we're seeing the most success is going to be in the ones below. So, the adult school and community college for our blended classes. I'm going to have Vinod talk a little bit about that in a bit. We have our library literacy programs. And, that's what we're, in use, as I mentioned. Let's say you have a long wait list and the learners come in, they're excited, they've committed to making a change in their life, improving life outcomes. And then they're told, you know what, we don't have a spot for you for 6 to 9 months. In these cases, we have a lot of libraries saying, okay, well, take out your phone, download the Learning Upgrade app, and we're going to get you started. So they start working on Learning Upgrade, and they can work on wherever they start. Let's say English Upgrade 1, and by the time they're now meeting with a tutor, that tutor has anywhere from 3, 6, or 9 months of assessment. They know exactly where these learners need help, and I'll be able to show you some of those reports and how you can look at that in a bit. Our family learning model. I've worked closely with Migrant Ed here in Southern California, and that's, we enroll the parents, we enroll the families, and then we also get their children. So they're learning as a family unit at home. And then we have our non-traditional programs, our refugee centers, housing, workforce. We work with churches, YMCA, and groups like that. And there they kind of take bits and pieces from our models and find ways to apply them. So the first one we're going to cover, I'm going to have Vinod talk about, and that was with Sweetwater Adult. And this is really the program that started everything for us at the beginning of the XPRIZE and the beginning of our app launch. So I'll let you take over on this one, Vinod.
Thanks, Drew. I wanted to answer one quick question. Marquita asked, can a person not attending an adult program sign up for Learning Upgrade? So if there's an independent learner and they're not part of your any program, they can always download the Learning Upgrade app onto their phone and then do a free trial and then purchase it as an in-app purchase by the month or by the quarter or year. So they can do that independently. So in Sweetwater, which was our very first pilot, we've been working with them for years on our web-based program. And then they became the first pilot for the smartphone. So what happened is a teacher named Lisa took 20 students and said, hey, today we're going to do something new. Everyone, pull out your phone and download the Learning Upgrade app. And then we're going to give you all your usernames and passwords. And I want you to start using it at home. And what happened after that was what got us into the semifinals of the XPRIZE, which what happened is the students just started going crazy with it at home. They started logging in all the time. The teacher was tracking all kinds of hours. The other thing is it changed the whole dynamics of the class. Whenever a new learner came in, immediately the existing learners would talk to them during breaks and get them to download the app and get them to start using it. And some students were even coming into class because they had heard about Learning Upgrade and they were enrolling for class to get the access. So what happened is that the usage, which you see down there on the right, average time per week using the mobile app was 4 hours. When we used to use the website, we were at about an hour a week because they had to come in, go into a computer lab, and use the computers there. Now that they were using their phones, we saw 4 times the number of hours per week on the program. The other thing is we were able to measure CASA's reading score gains. And within 10 weeks, the average gain was 7.8 points for the learners 3rd grade level or below, which was the XPRIZE target. And this was a multi-level ESL class. So we had level 1, 2, 3, 4 all working on it. The highest gain was 16 points. The reason this was important for us is the XPRIZE required a minimum gain of 10 points on CASAS or 1 NRS level in 1 year. So if we were able to achieve that in 10 weeks, then we were pretty confident that we could get the CASAS gain we needed through the app. So that's a little bit of Sweetwater.
Yeah, and so that's perfect. The next one we're going to cover is UMI Learning Center, and it's a refugee center in San Diego. And the first thing I want to mention is that they will be presenting at the Pro Literacy Conference in September. So for those of you that will be in attendance, make sure you go to their talk. Vinod and I will also be giving 2 presentations, so make sure to come by and say hi. But the UMI Learning Center, they kind of fit into our non-traditional as well as our family literacy. And what makes their story so special is that they reached out to us, with a phone call and said, hey, we have very little technology at our school. We have a few Chromebooks. We don't have a computer lab. Pretty much the only thing that we have access to is a Wi-Fi router. We don't have a lot of materials. We don't have enough money to do workbooks for everybody, but we would love to get a pilot started and see how the smartphone app can improve scores at our site. So, we started a pilot with them, and within the first 3 months, they were the most active pilot we had ever had in the history of Learning Upgrade. They were averaging 17 hours per student. Which is just incredible in such a short period of time. And the most important thing is that they were completing entire courses, a lot of these learners. And so, a couple months after they got started, I get a phone call late in the day, and they said, hey, Drew, can you come down? We're having an event at our site, and we want to hand out the certificates to our learners. We want to make a big deal out of it, and so we're going to just hand out certificates and make a night of it. And so I'm based out of the Los Angeles area, and so there's no way I would have been able to drive down. So I gave Vinod a call and said, hey, I know this is late notice, but they'd love it if one of us could make it down and hand out certificates. So Vinod's able to drive down, and he gets there, and he's thinking it's going to be a small part of the event, but the entire evening was devoted and dedicated to celebrating the success of these adult learners. And I think Vinod had to, work on some arm fatigue. He was handing out so many certificates, but it was really, similar in the way that Sweetwater opened our eyes to the amount of activity and time on task that we were seeing, by introducing an app to the classroom. UMI Learning Center really opened our eyes, to see, okay, well, what happens when you just, you really have only the basics with connectivity? We always take for granted, we have an iPhone, we have a high-end, Samsung Galaxy phone, but what happens when all of your phones are going to be low-end smartphones? And this is a big part of our R&D, and Vinod will tell you about it, but we don't focus our training when we're working through new lessons on our iPhones. We make sure that every single one of our lessons works on the lowest end smartphones you can buy. And that's important for equity. We want every learner in your classroom to have an opportunity to learn regardless of the smartphone they have. And so if you go to our website, you can find, or if you just type in UMI Learning Center on YouTube, you can hear, from these learners how much learning upgrade has impacted their lives. They'll tell you about the binge learning, how much time they're completing before they go to bed. And then the big one is just the way that it's inspired new goals and dreams. A lot of our adult learners, and as instructors, you guys know this better than anybody, is they haven't had a lot of academic success. And so we really are starting to see that learning upgrade lights a spark. Where learning's fun, they're having success, and they get to see that path ahead. And we hear from so many of the learners here at UMI, just how learning upgrade has inspired them to go on and continue their education. And so that's, a look at a non-traditional, these learners that come, they also bring their kids. And so we have their kids on learning upgrade as well.
Drew, I wanted to mention that
Yeah.
I just put a link into the New Readers Press Learning Upgrade videos page.
Oh,
And
yes.
that page includes both the Sweetwater video and that UMI Learning Refugee video. So any of you look in the chat window and click on that link, and all those videos are there on the New Readers Press page.
Awesome. Thank you, Vinod. And then, this is our library literacy center model. And so we've worked with this with Read San Diego, LA Public Library. One of the other big groups in New York is for Queens Public Library. But here, the one I want to focus on is on tutors and waitlists. So I covered this a little bit before, but learning upgrade is going to work really well in your libraries and literacy centers when you don't have classroom time with your learners. Let's say I get to meet with this individual maybe for 30 minutes or an hour a week, sometimes every other week. Learning upgrade provides the learner with constant interaction. They're able to work, and as a tutor or as an instructor, you're able to view those reports daily. You can make phone calls, text message, email, keep in touch with the learner, say, hey, I see you're maybe struggling with this area. Hey, you completed 5 lessons today, great job. And then when they're coming in to meet with the tutor or instructor, the instructor is able to look at all of that reporting and say, okay, this is the area that they're struggling with. Now I can really focus my time with them. And so this is the newest video we just came out, and we focused on Read San Diego here. And so you can find that, again, on YouTube, on our channel. And I'm not sure if we've added that to the New Readers Press video page, but if not, we can get that one added quickly for you. Then the final one I want to talk about just briefly is workforce. And so this has been an area we've been growing in. But we started talking to a few in the, this is Grand Pacific Resorts, which is they have a bunch of different resorts in California, and also a few larger hotel chains, and they invest really heavily in worker education. But the difficult thing they're finding is they'll spend millions of dollars on worker training, but a lot of that worker training requires their employees to be literate. And so there's really no bridge to take a non-literate or low literate employee and then introduce them to this, worker training. And so they find Learning Upgrade to be very important. They can get, their entire staff on Learning Upgrade. The learners can work at their own pace. They have rewards. If you can finish X amount, then you qualify for these rewards. But they're doing some really innovative competitions to encourage activity. And then to hear the stories from a lot of our, the frontline workers that are using Learning Upgrade, the confidence they have when they go in to clean a room and they're able to speak with guests and fully understand what it is they're asking, what they're seeking. They feel more confident, seeking advancement. If you're going to be a manager or if you want to move up, you need to be able to communicate with everybody at the organization. And so Learning Upgrade is really providing a very valuable tool in workforce. So now what I want to focus the rest of our time here is getting started as a provider. I showed you how to find the Learning Upgrade pilot. You'll go to Digital Solutions. And now I just want to quickly cover how you as a provider can get started. Once you apply for a pilot, we'll send you an email with all the information on that. And then we run informational webinars throughout the year to do a deeper dive into the LMS. So don't worry if you feel like you're not grabbing everything right now. I'd like to ask more about a report. You can always reach out directly, but we also do informative LMS webinars throughout the school year to give you the skills to dive in and use that. To get started, everything's built around this 4-step plan. Today is, a little bit of number 1, teacher training, but if you can join a more informational webinar for number 1, that's what we want to do. The ones I want to show you today is, our student onboarding, how we motivate and track our learners, and then how we celebrate student success. So the first step that you'll all take is you'll go to newreaderspress.com, go to Digital Solutions, apply for a pilot, and then we'll get you set up at your site. You'll receive an email, and in that email, it'll have all the information to help you get started. You'll have your own teacher, instructor, username, password, and school ID. This is how you access the LMS. And then you can make a choice. Do you want your learners to self-enroll, or do you want to create accounts as an instructor? A lot of our sites like to have their learners self-enroll. So we have this link for PDF class code sheet in the Getting Started email. When you click on that, you'll see here you're going to have a 7-digit class code, and this is what your learners are going to need to enroll in your class. So we make it really simple. We have all the instructions with images on that PDF, and with that 1-page PDF, you can hand that to everybody, and your learners will be able to get started. I want to quickly walk you through, if we like to call them onboarding parties, but if you have your learners in a classroom setting, then we can just have this projected on the screen, make sure everybody has that app downloaded, and then we can just walk them through the steps. So you open up, the Learning Upgrade app, you launch that on your phone, and then you're going to click that orange Get Started button. You can start on the English or math track. So in this case, we're going to hit English. And then you're going to have 3 options. You can start from the very beginning, which is the very basic lesson 1. You can directly enroll into one of the courses. So you'll see K through 5. And Vinod showed you our placement tables earlier. And so if your learners have already taken one of those tests, then you can just look at that and say, okay, this was my CASA score. This is the appropriate Learning Upgrade course. All right, English Upgrade 3, we'll get started there. If you don't know where they're supposed to start, maybe the individual just arrived to your class, they can start out on the placement, and that's going to be a Learning Upgrade placement. So the very first thing that they're going to do in the app is take a Learning Upgrade assessment. We're going to assess them, and then once we've assessed them in the app, then we'll enroll them in the appropriate course. So those are the 3 options. They can start from the beginning, they can take a placement test, or they can directly enroll in a course. Once they've selected that option, they're going to enter in their first name and last name. They have the option of entering in a student ID, email, or phone number, and then the class code. And so the class code that was on that one-page PDF right there that you're handing out, that's going to be the class code that they want to enter here. They'll click go, and then we're going to provide them with that username, password, and school ID. And so this is important because if they lose their phone, move to a new device, this is the username, password, and school ID that they'll use to log in anywhere. After that, they're going to see their course map, and they can get started with their active course. So they can click on English Upgrade 2 that they selected and begin learning. For instructors that would like to enroll students on their own, we have separate trainings for this, but just to quickly show you, we have a student uploader. You can copy and paste it from a spreadsheet. You paste it in, you can select a format, so you can do first and last name. You can also import usernames and passwords. So if they're already using a username and password from another program, you can just import those 4 columns here. We can show you how to do that at a later date. I just want to let you know that it is an option. And in that case, you create, you can do 200 students at once, let's say, and then you create those, and then you can just print the passwords. You can print off a table of username passwords, one-page guides, but we do give you the option of importing your class. So once you've decided if you're going to have learners self-enroll or if you're going to create the accounts on your end, you plan an onboarding party. And so regardless of which one you do, it's great to have it, even if it's just a virtual onboarding party, but build awareness, let your learners know that Learning Upgrade is an option, and you can provide them with some link assets to our website. The big one, if you're going to have them onboard in class, is make sure they download the app before they arrive. We used to think internet would be our biggest hurdle. It tends to be people forgetting their account password. So I want to download it on iOS and I forgot my iCloud username and password, or Google Play, I forgot my password, my Google account. So make sure they download the app before you have your onboarding party, and then you can plan it from there. For self-enrollment, you can just have them all look at that class code to get started. If you've created the accounts on your end, then you can just print off all the usernames and passwords and hand those out. The most important thing with our onboarding party is to make sure that your learners complete at least 1 or 2 lessons in that first session. We find that if we can show the learners how to log in, launch the app, get started, and complete 1 or 2 lessons, they're off and running. And from that point, all you have to do as an instructor is step number 3, which is motivation and tracking. So, again, we have more in-depth webinars on this, but I just want to show you our most popular. So this is our student monitor, and the student monitor is the best to get live data and a live look at how your class is doing. I showed you on the course map that we have 60 lessons per course. So here everybody's in English 1, English Upgrade 1. To the left, we're going to display their names. We don't have any names for our slides here. And then each one of these tiles is going to represent a lesson. You'll see the gold, you'll see the silver, you'll see the bronze. And then for the learners that don't get 75% or better, you're going to see red. So for most of this, you can just eyeball and see how your learners are doing. What you want to look for is if you see a lot of bronze and then if you see red. When we're viewing this report live, we can hover over any one of these tiles and get live data on how they're doing. Say, okay, we hover over this third from bottom, there's a lot of bronze and there's red. We hover over that, vowel blends, and they've tried it 6 times. Say, okay, this is an opportunity to work with this individual one-on-one. And this is where it's really important for our tutors and our instructors. They can quickly view this and see how our learners are doing. Now, this is great to view an entire class. Once we identify those learners that might be struggling, we can view our individual course reports. So you'll see the graph here, the lessons displayed from left to right, 1 through 60. The blue is going to be their initial score, and the orange their high score. So this is important to see the areas that they haven't improved on their own. You'll see here that all of our valleys have been filled in. What you want to quickly just eyeball on this one is any valleys that haven't been filled in. You say, okay, this one, 19, we're looking at compare and contrast. Let's go and look at that, and we can work with the learner individually. Once we've looked at the graph, then we can scroll down and we'll view a table, and we're going to give you the name of the level. You can still view the high score and the initial score. The big one to view here, just eyeballing, is okay, times played and minutes spent. And so if you see, absolute value for 8, it took them 7 attempts, 117 minutes. Eventually they got it up to 100%. But what we want to keep an eye out for is if we see, a high number of attempts and a, number of minutes played, 120, and they're still just around 75. That's an opportunity to take this information and then work with the learner one-on-one. We also have a lot of, tracking and pacing and session reports. For those of you that are in the states of Texas, North Carolina, and Virginia, we are approved for distance learning. And so again, Texas, Virginia, North Carolina, we're approved for distance learning with all of our reports. We'll do specific report webinars that'll dive in and show you how to find the data you need, or if you have questions on that, you can always let us know. But I just want to cover some quickly. This is for tracking and pacing. You can set a start date, you can set an end date, and then we'll be able to show you how all of your learners are doing. So you see here for Isaac, he's in English 1, he spent 40 hours. We can see the total levels, how many bronze, silver, gold, and we can see last played. So this is the default. We're going to show each course on a row. You can also sort, and say, hey, I just want to see total English activity, total math activity, or you can just say all activity. With all activity, we'll condense each student down to one row, and even if they're in 3 courses like this one, English 1, English 3, and Math 1, you're just going to get one number that'll tell you the total time. So, this is our most popular report. This is a lot of the student monitor data just in a table, and this is our tracking and pacing. We also have our student session time report, and this one's a really important one. This is where you can really see that binge learning. And you can see here on the top student at 12:38 a.m. We're seeing a lot of lessons that are completed on these. You can see the subtotals, so the number of minutes spent, and again, you can set the time parameters for this. So we default to 1 week, but if you want to go back all the way to the beginning of your license, you can pull reports based on the time that you need to show. On the right hand here, you'll see Android. We also display iOS, or if it's a Chromebook, Linux, depending on the device that they're using. But with this student session report, you'll be able to see every single session that they're logging on the app, which lesson they're working on, how they scored, and which device they used. This latest one, this is our newest report. We just launched this one this month, and this is in class versus out of class. And so with the in class versus out of class, they're going to get an additional screen. So after they log in every single time, a screen will show up and ask the learner, are you working in class or out of class? And they can click on either option, and then those hours are going to show. So by default, we don't ask that question. And so everybody will just show up in hours total. And then for the learners that have that activated at their site, we'll be able to pull reports for how much time on task is spent in class versus out of class. Again, for this one, you can do start dates and end dates. And this is the newest one we just launched this month. This one is turned on by request. So for those of you requesting a pilot with us that would like in class versus out of class, let us know, and we'll be more than happy to turn that on for your license. So that's step 3, the tracking and reporting. Again, in the fall, we'll be doing 2 or 3 webinars specific just to reporting. The big one that we don't cover today is we'll be doing an admin webinar. So for those of you that are admins, let's say you're in a state and you want to have 20 pilots, 20 sites. We have admin logins that allow you to view data at all 20 sites. If you're, just an admin at an individual site and you want to see how the instructors at your site are doing, you want to see site-wide data, we have those. So we do have admin reports. We will be doing an admin webinar in the fall. But if you have questions that you'd like us to answer before then, feel free to reach out. Step number 4 is celebrating student success. So again, because we're doing that talk at Pro Literacy, want to make sure we focus on UMI, and they'll be talking a lot about their success there. But this is something we're seeing at every site, especially with the communities competition. Some of our programs are giving away smartphones for high earners, printing out certificates, having parties, and just making sure, that for our adult learners, when they do begin that path to math and literacy success, that we're really making a point to make a big deal out of it. So that's everything we're going to cover today. I just wanted to remind you one last time, for those of you that are interested in bringing Learning Upgrade to your program, go to newreaderspress.com, click on Digital Solutions, you'll see Learning Upgrade, and on the Learning Upgrade page, you'll see a pilot button. Fill that one out, and we'll be more than happy to get you started. My name's Drew. I was joined by Vinod, and we just really appreciate you joining and giving us an opportunity to tell you about Learning Upgrade. And we're excited for those of you that are going to bring Learning Upgrade to your programs, to just see it in use with your learners.
Great. Thanks, Drew. Thanks, Vinod. We really appreciate it. And for everybody that joined the webinar, thanks so much for joining. We highly recommend Learning Upgrade. There's a reason why they won the XPRIZE competition. We're hearing all kinds of things from learners about their experiences and how much they like it. And just a reminder, the XPRIZE Communities competition does run through the end of August. And to download download and then use 2 other times, you have to do that by August 31st. And ProLiteracy's code is 1155. Feel free to reach out to us or to Drew and Vinod, and we appreciate everybody joining us today.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.